When you're playing it so many times, as you have this great line in the interview, I used it as like the stinger for our piece on the radio because I said something to you like these songs have had such an enduring quality. You're like, I never thought I'd be at my age running around singing the Do Run Run.
Any of us did. None of us. We never really. When I realized this was probably going to be my life, I had probably been here like 20 years, and I'm like, seems like this is what I'm going to be doing. Because I never really took it seriously. Because had we really took it seriously, I would have made it my business to learn more about the business. But it was just something that just kind of snowballed along, and you're going along, and you're not thinking about it. Because that's what you've always done. But I don't think I really got serious until even after the original girls had left and everything was kind of dumped in my lap, that I had to take care of the business.
So time creeps on, and suddenly you look up and you realize, man, this is going to be my gig. I thought I was like taking this to maybe somewhere else, and now this whole baby is now mine.
Yes, exactly. Now it's like, okay, so the girls left. The original girls all left in 1966, broke up, and then 3 of us got back together after about 3 months, and we stayed together until about 73. And then one by one, after a grueling tour of England, which can be grueling, 5 weeks, they said, I really can't do it, because they had, one of them, Barbara Alston, had 2 children, and she couldn't find a good nanny. So you have the mother, you just can't go off and leave your children and go overseas and leave your children. They're not happy. Okay. Mary, one of the original girls, also got pregnant for the first time, and she was like 30 by then, and she was like, I can't believe it, I'm expecting a baby. So they were expecting a baby, she and her husband. Barbara already had 2 kids. I had been married, but I didn't stay married very long. I stayed a total of about 3 years. But I had very good support at home. My sister was home. Her husband she had gotten home because she became disabled with lupus. So between her and then, but she wasn't, she couldn't work. She was a special ed teacher, but she couldn't work. So I had my sister to help me. I had my mother. I also had an aunt who was, like a family friend. And then when I really started traveling very heavily back, my daughter was 5, I just got a live-in nanny who was excellent. I said for the rest of her life, I owe her, because I could go overseas, I could go everywhere, and she didn't have any children. She had a little girl that she lost, and my daughter was like her daughter. So I was able to travel, but a lot of women had to drop out because of children. It's not like a father, you have children, the mother's got to come home.
Yeah, to do that kind of career, I've always wondered how you could manage to do. It's kind of like I watch all these actors and stuff too, and they have a whole family. Like, how do they pull all that off?
Well, it was easier for me because now the first time I went away, I didn't really travel but weekends when my daughter was very small. But when she got to be about 5, I took a tour overseas, and I was gone about 5 weeks. And when I came back, when I was talking to her every now and then, and the housekeeper said, Kelly's kind of blue. I think she really misses you. But when I came back, she looked at me like, I don't know what you came back for now. I'm like, oh, she's not happy. But she was also very close with my mother and very close with the house, with the live-in nanny. They were very close. So I wasn't too upset.
You never thought the career cost you some aspect of a relationship?
Oh, the career costs you a lot. I'm not saying it cost the marriage. No, it didn't cost that. But it cost me a lot of things I never did. I never went to a prom because the girls did, because they were in high school when we started. I didn't go to a prom. I did, a lot of things I just didn't get to do that teenagers did because I was already working by the time I was just turned 16. I was on the road.
When at that time when you were 16, you're just on the road, as sort of a parallel, because it's a similar era. When I was talking with Beverly from the Shirelles, she was talking about, and it was, and you can imagine in my era, I've never lived through segregation, but the stories that she would tell were just really compelling, and it made me think, because then I thought of our interview, and I thought, I never really asked Dee Dee that. When you think of that earliest period, what are examples of that you can remember having to live with?
I didn't get too much of that because, it was during the 60s and a lot of things were changing. But the first time I ever went south was on a Sam Cooke tour. And this was a great tour. This was Sam Cooke, Jerry Butler, Dionne Warwick, Johnny Thunder, The Drifters, Dee Clark. All I went to was a bunch of us on this tour. Solomon Burke. just a bunch of us. Anyway, I had never been south before, and when I remember hitting Virginia and seeing a big billboard of the Ku Klux Klan, I was like, that is really real. Because I mean, I'm born and raised in New York. My mother's raised in New York, so I heard of it, but I never had witnessed it. And when I went on that tour, we had to stay at black hotels, and I know one place in Waycross, Georgia, the stage was in the middle of the room. You're supposed to sing black on this side, white on that side, and you sing to these, and then you turn around and you sing to those, and then you turn around and you sing to the. I said, this is the most ridiculous, stupid thing I've ever heard in my life. But you know what? I would see the white water faucet and the black water faucet, and I'd go right to the white water faucet and drink, because the black one always looked terrible. I said, I'm not drinking out of that thing. And and whenever they said something, I just ignored it totally. And you know what? They would just look at me like, where are you from?
Other people in the bathroom?
Yeah, not in the bathroom so much. Bathrooms were, pretty much, we had our bathrooms backstage. But I'm talking about if you use the water faucet outside or something like that.
In a public area. Yeah, and they had two of them next to...
Yeah. And they have men, women, and black. I'm like...
It says black on the sign.
Yeah. Did it say black or Negro? Whatever, same. The Negro means black in Spanish, so what's the difference? Whatever it was, I knew I used one that looked the best, and I'm like, I'm not thinking about them. They don't like it, sorry. And they would just stand back and look at you like, and then they'd come and ask you, where are you from? Because they knew you weren't from there, because if you were from there, you would know better. I'm like, I'm not thinking about what they're talking, and they wouldn't really challenge you.
What a ride to have been through. It's just like you've seen so much change. When you talk about, I never thought I'd still be singing the Do Run Run. Well, you think of the era in between. I mean, you've crossed history, really.
Yeah, I'm glad I came along. Well, I would have liked to actually come along a little bit later, because the Supremes came along right at the time when they were doing so many British acts that they made Ed Sullivan and act shows that wouldn't even have you on because you were rock and roll. Remember, they gave Elvis Presley a hard time. They'd rather have an elephant act before they had a rock and roll act, and that's the truth. But when they had people like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and the Dave, all of those, then they had to open it up for the Americans too. And that's when they opened it up.
Any TV that really sticks out to you is like, man, I really appreciated getting to do that, or something that is a fun memory of on the TV?
I know. We used to do Dick Clark American Bandstand a lot, but I remember the first time doing it. I remember this studio was really small, because on TV it looks big. And I brought my little poodle with me, and they brought the poodle on the show. They took her from the dressing room and brought her out. Gigi says, I think you got a guest back here. Don't you have a little girl back here? And sure enough, they brought out my dog.
That's really cool that you have these kind of memories. It takes you all the way. And you maintained a relationship with him, you said.
Well, we worked with him a lot. Much more. We worked with a lot of those Dick Clark Caravan of Stars tours. And we were on tour with the Supremes when they got their first hit. They had just released Where Did Our Love Go? Shared a dressing room and everything. They were practicing. I can remember getting their little routines together, and they had little green teardrop dresses, like 3 or 4 rows of ruffles. And by the time we finished that tour, they had a number 1. By the time we did the second tour with them, they were on their 3rd number 1. Yeah.
Any other touring acts that stick out, that people that you were really excited to have stared the build with?
Sam Cooke. He was my favorite. He could just take an audience and just grab them. He just was so classy, and he knew how to work an audience. And he used to say, I don't dance. He didn't dance, but he could move good. But he just knew how to grab an audience. And I loved working with him. We worked with him a lot back in the early 60s. Yeah. We used to work a lot with Gene Pitney too, really.
Right, yeah, you mentioned right here in this place.
Yeah, all over. Dick used to use Gene a lot for headlining shows and stuff.
As a final note, a last question for you. One of the neat things on your website, I was reading about Dee Dee has gotten to do some, when you're the kind of legend like she is, and you got songs that have been a part of so many people's lives, a lot of famous people are interested in like maybe having you do special events. And I was reading about this one. You got to do this private party for Roger King, this TV cat. Yeah, Kirk Douglas. Fun. Tell us a little bit about some of the guest lists.
Yellow. Oh, I loved it. Well, okay, he had a birthday. It was his 50th birthday party. And he wanted to have us he had us and the Commodores on the show at his beach house out in New Jersey. This was, but we had to stay at the hotel. We all stayed, and then we had limos drive you over to the beach house because there's no parking there, right? And it was a big, 3 or 4 story beach house, and he had everything you could possibly want for about, I don't know how many guests. But I remember Gladys Knight was in the audience, and they had, and at the end of the party, he came on stage and sang with us to Do Ron Ron. He had his little girl. She was about 10. She came up and sang. And at the end of the party, because it was right on the beach, he had fireworks. I mean, this was a great party. I was like, geez, this is a really good party.
Who are some of those stars coming up to you? I mean, who's the biggest star that you've been shocked has come up to you and been like, I'm a huge fan, I really love the music?
Gosh, I'll tell you who I liked, and who surprised me, was so much better looking in person, was Sidney Poitier.
Wow.
And I didn't realize he was so big. I'm like, he's a tall guy, you know? And he was very handsome in person, but I never really thought he was, I thought he looked okay. But when I saw him in person, I said, he's really impressive, you know?
He was a fan. He came over, you sought you out of it.
Yes, yeah. I don't know. It's been so many years and so many people. It's so funny because I saw this guy. He used to work on a TV show and a sitcom, not a sitcom, a detective show. And we were playing in Las Vegas. And he came to the show, and I looked at him and said, boy, this guy looks familiar. And I kept looking at him, and to this day I can't remember his name, but he played on the show with the guy who took the offshoot from Matlock. Remember, one of his nephew or something? They got a TV show after that. And
You got that one?
Can't remember the show now. Really handsome guy, black hair. And it didn't stay on very long. But anyway, this was a black guy, was a detective on the show too. And I kept saying, he looks so familiar. I don't know. And it turned out that I worked with his wife at the Apollo. And I remembered his face, but he wasn't, I didn't even know he was an actor at the time. But he took us all out for dinner, and gave us a big spa. He was staying at the spa. We were staying somewhere. We were playing for O.J. Simpson, Vincent Price. I did an interview with Vincent Price. He was very nice. I said, it used to scare me. I said, do you scare your wife? He says, she scares me. Yeah. I mean, it's so many years you have to think, but yeah, sure. I thought he was very nice.
Was the juice nice?
Yes.
When you met him?
Yeah. That week everybody was in town. This was in Palm Springs. It's like everybody. They had a big Hertz convention, and everybody was in town that week. Yeah, so that was great. And that's the same week I did the interview with Vincent Price. Yeah.
You've got the best stories, and it's as you can tell, I enjoy hearing them. I'm super grateful for you being willing to tell them. I hope this was not a hassle.
No, it wasn't a hassle. I was just very tired because it's 6 hours later. We're all from the East Coast, so.
You've got endless energy. You give it off. It's really it's appreciated. Thank you, Dee Dee.
Thank you. Mahalo.
Mahalo to you.